welcome back. Resilience in a competitive environment. Kind of the layout, we're going to talk about briefly some of the literature that exists, and then go into something more interactive, and then recap and have some time for questions and answers at the end. So, when you think about how people go about their life, I'm of the belief that people do what they do for a reason, right? At some place and some point in time, the way that they interacted with people, the way that they thought about the world, that worked for them, and that's why they do it. And they don't really change that until they have a reason, some motivation to do something different. However, sometimes a different environment requires a different approach, right? So enter health professional school. The things that you did that worked for you to get here may not sustain you while you're here. You may have to mix it up in order to be successful here. And sometimes, rather than changing things or modifying how you go about things to suit your new environment, the new people in it, people continue to do what once was helpful, even if they're not getting the results that they want. And the larger consequences of that over time lead to things like emotional exhaustion. So you're feeling tired all the time. Maybe you're dreading the next day, even though you've had a bit of rest. Cynicism, feeling detached from your work, not as excited or energized by it as you used to be. And you may even be irritable with patients or coworkers or peers, right? Even if you don't express that to them directly, you may notice that you're a little bit more annoyed or have a shorter temper. Decreased personal efficacy. So that's how you feel, how capable you feel, your self-confidence in your ability to do your work or do your job. So that's going to go down. Your productivity goes down. And together, those things describe burnout. All right. So burnout is different than time-limited, situation-specific stress. Burnout is going to include those three things, right? Emotional exhaustion, cynicism, a decrease in personal efficacy. And when you think about health professional education, which all of you are in right now, you want to think of it from the standpoint of a marathon, not a sprint. So you're going to need to have mental and physical stamina to get through this, to get to the end, to graduate successfully, and go on. And that's going to require things like pacing. When you think about a long distance run, you're going to encounter some obstacles that you didn't anticipate. And your ability to respond to those obstacles in a healthy way that makes you stronger also, that is resilience, right? So that's going to be the focus for our remaining time, resilience. And actually, I kind of want to go back a bit. Why do you think we're talking about resilience? Like, do we just want to? Do we pick it at random? Why is that important? What made y'all come? Besides the free food. Were you forced to be? No? What made you come?
I think it's very applicable. I guess the point in my life where I am right now, trying to manage different things, and then I don't look forward to that.
Okay. So trying to manage the many roles and responsibilities you have, maybe resilience could be helpful to know more about, right? So healthcare providers are some of the people most likely to experience burnout. Even if you still have high job satisfaction, you could be experiencing burnout. Your interprofessional interaction, so colleagues that you're working with in your office, in your department, as well as those outside of your department, those will be poorer. Your productivity overall will decrease. You're more likely to make medical errors. Depression and substance abuse often accompany burnout, and malpractice suits often accompany burnout. Healthcare practitioners who experience burnout sometimes leave the profession early, like they leave it altogether, they retire early. So there's a lot of different points in your life that burnout can really negatively impact. And so that's a reason why you would want to guard against it. So what we're going to talk about are three kind of protective factors that can help you build the resilience, boost that protective buffer, and also guard against burnout. So we're going to be talking about play, flexibility, and teamwork. those are 3 key factors that really promote resilience. And for our purposes, we're defining resilience as the ability of an individual to respond to stress in healthy, adaptive ways, so that their goals are achieved with minimal harm and unnecessary exertion, physical, psychological costs. But also, those things make you stronger. So how do you achieve your goals, overcome, and also get stronger in the process?
So we've got this thesis, right, that there's these 3 things that we can add to our experience that make us more resilient. The first one I'm going to talk about is the power of play, right? And so when I talk about that, I'm using that phrase in a really broad sense, but when I say the word play, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
So sports.
Sports?
Children play.
Children play, absolutely, okay. Other ideas that come to mind when you hear play? Sorry? Fun, yes, absolutely. And so those are great examples. That's what we're looking for in this. So when we talk about the power of play, what I'm talking about is if you want to be more resilient in your career, you have to have some play in your life. Now, what that means varies from case to case. So it can be both sort of like having some way to care for yourself that feels like play. So maybe you engage in a sport yourself, right? Maybe you're someone who likes to be active, you like to run, I don't know, you're on a pickup softball team or something like that. That's a great example of play. But what we're also talking about here is a mindset of play, because that is the thing that can create resilience in the moment when you are practicing, when you are at work, when you're in the lab, whatever it is, and you need to have that ability to bounce back. One of the things that will contribute to it is a play mindset. And one of the ways we describe it is that childlike mindset. We talk about having that mindset, it's a mindful mindset, of being able to approach each event that occurs in this sort of playful way. I think the best example I have about this is if you look at small children, right? How many people have had this experience with like a toddler? Toddlers are probably the best for this. They find something on the ground that any of us would go, ew, don't touch that, right? Like they walk up and they see bugs on the ground. Now the adult response is like, ooh, don't touch that. But the toddler response is like, ooh, that's kind of cool. What is that? Why is it doing that thing? That's the play mindset that we're working for here. If we can bring that to situations in our work world, and even in your academic experience, that can really buffer against that burnout you feel when you constantly have to experience everything in sort of like this adult, rigid mindset. So I love this Brian Sutton Smith quote. He was a researcher who did all this work on the power of play. But he's talking about like the opposite of play is not work. And I think a lot of people think that's the case, right? But there is some truth to that saying, like all work and no play makes so-and-so a dull person, right? You're not necessarily working if you're not playing. Sometimes you're just depressed. And you can both work and play at the same time. So we want to engender that mindset.
All right. And another protective factor would be flexibility. So it's great if you can like stretch and do all those things, but we're talking about positive flexibility. So like my colleague kind of alluded to, getting out of like a rigid mindset and really embracing like curiosity and not thinking in such a like fixed fashion about how something could be useful or, you know, what you want to do. So, I mean, cognitive flexibility is really the essence of resilience. So mentally adapting to unexpected situations and new environments and just adjusting your thinking across situations. So if you think about a surgical situation, right? If you've done your due diligence, you've ordered the x-rays and you've looked at the scans that were necessary ahead of time before the surgery, and then you get in the operating room and the person's body is having some unexpected things, whether it's oral surgery, another part of the body, like you're seeing some things you didn't anticipate. In order to still provide that patient with the best care, calm your own nerves, and like, you know, be focused and minimize errors, you really are gonna have to be mindful. not mindful, but like mindful, focused on the present, and really thinking about how you can make intentional choices to regulate yourself, right? Calm your nerves, focus on the situation in hand, and maybe be creative, taking in knowledge from different places and not necessarily where you'd expect. So being mindful is really about paying attention to what is happening now. Slowing down, so getting out of your head, not being overly focused on the past or the future, because those are things that you can't really impact. Where you really have the most control is right now. And so that allows you to use your time, effort, and energy in the most effective and efficient ways. And research shows that. There's consistently been shown a relationship between mindfulness and psychological health, which is, again, what's going to help you during like times of stress and difficulty. It's also been shown to reduce worry and stress, right? So again, that buffer in your mindset. What do you think is a top worry? What is one of your top worries while you're in your program right now? Just throw it out. Debt? Oh, yep, that's a good one. Any others? Does anyone worry about how much time they're spending on their personal life and their work life and their academic life? Yeah, I see some nods. That's the top worry of a lot of people. Like, oh, work-life balance. How do I achieve that? Where do I get that? And I think a lot of times when people hear that phrase, they think of this scale that's just perfectly balanced, right? Here's work, here's my personal life, they're equally weighted. But that's not realistic. Like, real life doesn't look like that. Sometimes you need to spend more time with family or partner or pets or on yourself. And sometimes you may have to just like bunker down and focus and just study. And you're just doing what you need to do to study and take in that information. But this work-life balance mindset doesn't really offer you that. But if you're gonna be flexible and you seek for harmony, it allows you that. It allows you to put preference and priority and time and effort in these different areas of your life, which there's probably more than two, and not feel guilty about that, because that's just a normal process, right? Oftentimes when people are trying to strive for this false balance in their work life, they're caught up in their head a lot, so they're never really present. It's like, oh, I'm out with friends and family, this will be fun, but I'm thinking about this quiz that I have to do tomorrow, and my clinical, and I'm gonna be observed with a patient, and I probably should try to get back into the lab and like practice with my instruments, and oh, I have this group. So you're not present, you're not enjoying your family and friends when you're with them. And then when you're in class, you're like, oh, I need to clean my house, I need to do laundry, I should stop at the grocery store, I really want to go on vacation, but I don't have time because then I won't have as much time to study. Like, you're never present in what you're actually doing. And that's just not going to help you, because if you're taking a break, but you're not actually taking the break, you don't get the benefits of that, right? So if you strive for harmony versus balance and just shift your mindset in that way, it can help you to know that like there's time for all of these pieces of my life and all of them are actually important. Lastly is teamwork. So, health professional programs are rigid, competitive, stress is a part of that. I know that y'all all know that, you're living that right now, right? And competitiveness is normal. It's normal, it's natural, and it's something that can be beneficial up to a certain point. Just like stress. Stress and being aroused, that can be beneficial up to a certain point, and then it's just like, you're exhausted, you're tired out. But instead of thinking of it as, I have to be better than this person, or I'm competing with them for these limited resources, if you think about it like a community of care, you can have people that share your passion for your work, so it can keep you enthusiastic as opposed to that cynicism, right, and feeling detached from your work. These are people that you can connect with over things that are challenging, or cases that, you know, are different and new, where you want to consult. But also people that are going to be able to celebrate with you when you have success, as well as support you when you're going through challenges. Even though you can't choose your feelings, so that feeling of competitiveness and like, I have to be the best, that may not go away, or it may take some time to go away. but you can choose your behavior, right? And so resilience is not only about the individual adjusting their mindset and what they do, but also a whole organization, right? Like your class, your department, the program. And when you're off either in your own practice or another organization, thinking about either things that you can join into or initiate that are going to build these types of communities of support. And it's something that you'll probably really have to seek out or create because healthcare is becoming more specialized and privatized and things of that nature. So keeping that, that idea of community, this will also be a group of people that can hold you accountable to prioritizing taking care of yourself and also pursuing harmony as opposed to that false sense of balance. A lot of times people think that withdrawing from people in their workplace, if that's stressful, is going to help them be resilient. Like, I'm just going to do what I have to do. I'm not going to talk to anyone. But isolation actually leads to decreased resilience. So whatever resilience you have that's going to help you rebound, when you isolate yourself and you don't talk to people, you're further detaching yourself from your work, from your colleagues, and that's going to decrease the resilience that you want. So, the next time that you find yourself frustrated with things not having gone to plan or that you've made an error, instead of kind of suffering in solidarity, lean into the reality that all people make mistakes and all humans suffer, and that is inevitable. There's nothing you can do to prevent that, but you're also not alone. So now we're going to switch into a more interactive way to kind of demonstrate some of these things we've been talking about.
So how many people expected to have a task to do when you walked into this training today? Well, we're going to make you do a task. But the hope is we're going to build off this thesis of we want it to be playful, we want you to be able to be flexible, and we want you to work in teams. So we're going to break up into teams of 3 to 5 people. These can be people you know, or maybe mix it up and talk to people you don't know. That would be okay too. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to build a tower. We have some supplies, but we're going to walk around and hand those out to you. And what we want you to do is build the tallest tower that you can in the 10 minutes we're going to give you. So the other thing that I want to point out to in this activity is they weren't all successes, right? There was some failure in here. If we were going to like do that all or nothing, success and failure. Some towers didn't stand, some towers needed to be shortened, some towers just didn't work out the way we wanted to. But I want to talk about, when we talk about resilience, you have to acknowledge the power of failure. Failure is really important in becoming a resilient and successful people. I mean, I think most people have heard, whose quote is it? Edison's quote, right? Like that he did 1,000 failures for every success. I'm paraphrasing here. But a lot of the people that we know as great successes, when you talk to them, they acknowledge how many failures have happened. But I think one of the things that can be hard, especially in the healthcare industry, is one, you get the overt message of you can't afford to fail in any way, right? Like that's not allowed. But then also when we kind of look around, we don't see other people failing. We kind of think that we need to be perfect. But what we do know is if you fail, if you allow yourself a little bit of failure, you really will grow from that. And I think there's a research study that I like. Joellen's heard me talk about it so much because I'm so excited about it. That I just think really illustrates this. It's work that's been done on AI, artificial intelligence. So what they've been doing is inserting AI into these robots. And the AI has to learn how to move the robot. And they have two groups. One group of the robots, the old-fashioned way. Programmers sit down, program the robot. This is how you lift your arm. This is how you move your leg, right? The other group, what they end up doing is they put the AI in the robot and they let the robot flail around. They just tell it to move, they don't give it any instructions, so the robot sits there and flails and looks crazy, right? And what they find later is the robots that were allowed to flail about, to look ridiculous, when obstacles are put in their way or when they encounter something like a limb is removed, they recover much more quickly than the robots who were programmed. Because a programmer can never think through all possible permutations of like how you move and what you need to do. But the robot that was allowed to flail had some experience of like, oh, this is what it was like to lose my balance, or this is what it's like to not be able to move forward anymore, and they were able to overcome that. So I give this as an example because you come across these obstacles in your career, in your academics and stuff. And if you can keep that in mind when you come across an obstacle, of like, oh, this is my opportunity to flail about a little bit, and think of it as a learning experience, it will increase your resiliency coming back from it. Does that make sense?
So yeah, so resilience is kind of like a muscle in that way.
Yes.
And so it's not just about rebounding and adapting to a new environment, but it's about getting stronger in that process. And so that's what Mickey was just sharing about. So, today we've highlighted these 3 factors: play, flexibility, and teamwork as factors that can protect you from burnout and promote resilience. But that's not an exhaustive list, right? So there are other things like regular exercise, balanced diet, staying hydrated, taking breaks during the day when you're studying between patients, planning a vacation or some type of getaway so that you have something to look forward to, saying no, setting boundaries. All of those things also, promote resilience, and there's others. Patients want healthcare providers who are attentive, rested, present, and caring, right? By keeping play in your life, flexibility in your mind, and seeking teamwork and community with your colleagues, you will strengthen your resilience from now on. Thank you.